Welcome to the Silent Casebook, where we uncover the darkest, most chilling true crime stories, cases that haunt communities and leave behind unanswered questions. Today we take you to the coastal town of Southport in England, a place where children danced, laughed and dreamed, until one summer afternoon when their world was shattered by an act of unthinkable horror. Southport, located in Merseyside, is known for its serene charm, places where families settle, where children can roam safely, and where life moves at a calm and steady pace. One of Southport's cherished community spaces was the Heart Space, a hub of creativity, movement and joy. Founded in October 2023, the studio quickly became a second home for young dancers, offering various classes including yoga, dance and workshops for children. But on July the 29th, 2024, that joyful rhythm of the studio was interrupted, replaced by something far more sinister. That day, the studio was hosting a special Taylor Swift-themed dance and yoga workshop, a summer holiday event designed to bring happiness to children between the ages of 6 and 11. Parents dropped off their little ones, expecting nothing more than an afternoon of fun, but in a matter of minutes, that innocence was stolen. What no one knew was that someone was watching, someone who had planned this moment, someone who had come with much darker intentions. Our story begins with Alphonse and Laetita Rudakubana, a devout Christian couple who fled the turmoil of Rwanda in the early 1990s. Seeking refuge and a fresh start, they arrived in the United Kingdom in 2002, settling in Cardiff in Wales. On August the 7th, 2006, their son Axel Rudakubana was born, a British citizen by birth. In 2013, the family relocated to Banks, a tranquil village on the outskirts of Southport, seeking a peaceful environment to raise their children. Neighbours described the Rudakubana family as quiet and unassuming. Axel in particular was noted for his reserved nature, seldom seen socialising or playing outdoors. Despite his introverted demeanour, Axel displayed a passion for the arts. He joined a musical theatre group, honed his acting skills at the Pauline Quirk Academy, and even featured in a BBC Children in Need promotional video embodying the 10th Doctor. However, as he progressed into adolescence, Axel's behaviour began to raise concerns. Enrolled at Range High School in 2017, he initially blended in, but soon exhibited signs of anxiety and social withdrawal. In October 2019, at the age of 13, Axel's troubling thoughts surfaced when he contacted Childline, expressing a desire to harm a school bully. This alarming revelation led to police intervention and his subsequent expulsion after admitting to bringing a knife to school on multiple occasions. Following his expulsion, Axel was enrolled at the Acorns School, a specialist education centre. Here his behaviour grew increasingly concerning. In December 2019, he threatened peers and staff with a hockey stick inscribed with their names, resulting in criminal charges and further isolation. Between 2019 and 2021, Axel was referred to the Prevent programme 3 times due to his fascination with extremist content and violent ideologies. Despite these interventions, he was not deemed an immediate threat, and no substantial support was provided. Prevent is a key component of the United Kingdom's counter-terrorism strategy known as Contest. Its primary mission is to prevent individuals from becoming terrorists or supporting terrorism by addressing the personal, ideological and social factors that make them susceptible to radicalisation. Prevent operates through early intervention, working collaboratively with local authorities, schools, healthcare providers and community organisations to identify and support those at risk. The programme offers tailored interventions designed to steer individuals away from extremist paths and reintegrate them into society. In the case of Axel Rudakubana, significant concerns have been raised regarding Prevent's effectiveness. As I said, between December 2019 and April 2021, Axel was referred to Prevent multiple times due to his alarming behaviours, including social media posts and internet searches related to mass shootings and terrorist attacks. Despite these red flags, Prevent concluded that he lacked a clear ideological motivation and did not escalate his case for further intervention. This oversight has been attributed in part to a clerical error where a misspelling of his surname prevented authorities from linking multiple referrals, which led to a fragmented assessment of his threat level. At home, Axel's isolation deepened. Diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder in February 2021, he struggled to connect with his family and the outside world, immersing himself in dark and violent online content. A week before the tragic events, Axel attempted to revisit his former school, possibly foreshadowing his violent intentions. His father intervened, preventing the visit, but the underlying threat remained unaddressed. These missed opportunities and warning signs culminated in a tragedy that would forever scar the Southport community. July the 29th, 2024 began like any other summer morning in Southport. Parents eager to give their children a fun and engaging holiday experience arrived at the Heart Space for a special Taylor Swift-themed dance and yoga workshop. Inside, young dancers ranging from ages 6 to 11 excitedly stretched and prepared to learn routines set to their favourite songs. The energy was light, joyful, full of laughter. It was supposed to be a day of music, movement and fun, but outside lurking in the shadows was a predator on a mission. At 11:11 a.m, CCTV footage captured Axel Rudakubana walking calmly down Hall Lane, dressed in a green hoodie with a hood up and a surgical face mask concealing his identity. He briefly glanced into a house window before continuing his journey. Just 5 minutes later, at 11:16 a.m, the same cameras recorded him returning along Hall Lane, his hand in his pocket, keeping his face partially hidden. He proceeded towards a nearby location where he was picked up by a pre-booked taxi. Using the alias Simon, Rudakubana had arranged for a taxi to pick him up to Southport. Dashcam footage from the vehicle showed him sitting silently in the back seat throughout the journey, expressionless, staring ahead. The taxi driver later recalled that Rudakubana gave minimal communication, only directing him toward his final destination before stepping out. Upon arrival at Hart Street, he instructed the driver to stop at 34A Hart Street, just a short walk from the Heart Space dance studio. He exited the vehicle without paying the fare and began walking towards his target. At approximately 11:45 a.m, Rudakubana approached the Heart Space, where the Taylor Swift-themed workshop was already in full swing. Children were dancing, laughing, their parents having entrusted them to a safe space. The front door of the studio was left unlocked for fire safety reasons, an unfortunate but necessary measure that allowed him to enter the building unimpeded. He ascended the stairs to the studio, where instructor Leanne Lucas, a 35-year-old yoga teacher, briefly glanced at him. Initially, she assumed he was a parent or a guardian arriving to collect a child. But before she could ask, he pulled a 20-centimeter kitchen knife from his pocket and lunged at her. Without warning, he began his attack. Lucas bravely tried to protect the children, shielding them with her body, but Rudakubana slashed and stabbed at her multiple times. Despite her injuries, she managed to push several children towards an exit, allowing them to escape the unfolding massacre. Chaos erupted in the studio. Screams filled the air as children scattered in terror, trying desperately to evade the attacker. Witnesses later recalled the horrific sound of their cries, pleading, terrified, before some voices were silenced forever. Tragically, 3 young girls, 6-year-old Bebby King, 7-year-old Elsie Stankham, and 9-year-old Alice da Silva Aguar, were unable to escape his grasp. Rudakubana moved through the studio methodically, slashing and stabbing without hesitation. The joyful energy of the room was replaced with sheer horror. Meanwhile, in an adjacent office within the same building, Jonathan Hayes heard the commotion. Realizing something was terribly wrong, he rushed towards the sound of screaming. As he reached the landing, he found himself face to face with Rudakubana. Without hesitation, Hayes lunged at him in an attempt to stop the attack. A struggle ensued, and Rudakubana stabbed Hayes in the leg, wounding him. Despite the pain, Hayes' intervention gave crucial seconds for more children to escape. His bravery alongside that of Leanne Lucas undoubtedly saved lives that day. At 11:47 a.m, just minutes after the attack began, the first distress calls were made to emergency services. The caller's voice was frantic as they described the unimaginable scene unfolding inside the dance studio. Reports of a man with a knife attacking children sent shockwaves through the agency dispatch. Armed response units were immediately deployed. At 11:57 a.m, police stormed the building. Officers arrived expecting chaos, expecting a fight, but what they found was something even more chilling. Axel Rudakubana standing still, motionless, knife still in hand. He did not resist. He did not attempt to escape. As officers raised their weapons and shouted orders, he simply dropped the knife to the floor and raised his hands in surrender. 3 children lay lifeless. 10 others, including 2 adults, were seriously injured, some fighting for their lives. The once lively, safe space of the heart space was now a blood-stained crime scene. Parents who had dropped off their children just an hour earlier now arrived at a scene of devastation, some collapsing in grief, others desperately searching for their sons and daughters. Southport had never seen a tragedy like this, and it would never be the same again. With Axel in custody, the question remained, why? What led the 17-year-old to commit such an unspeakable act? As the investigation unfolded, the chilling truth behind his twisted mind would finally be revealed. With the suspect in custody and victims rushed to nearby hospitals, investigators arrived at the scene to unravel what had just taken place, but nothing could have prepared them for what they were about to witness. The walls, once bright and welcoming, were stained with blood. Children's belongings, tiny dance shoes, water bottles, and colourful backpacks lay scattered amid the chaos. The mirrors, which had reflected joy and movement just an hour earlier, were now splattered with the aftermath of pure horror. The silence was deafening. Where there had been laughter, there was now only emptiness. Officers moved carefully through the room, stepping over the remains of a day that should have been filled with innocence and joy. Some turned away, momentarily overwhelmed by the scene in front of them. It was the kind of horror that no amount of police training could have ever truly prepared them for. Meanwhile, at the Southport police station, officers prepared to interrogate 17-year-old Axel Rudakubana. They hoped to uncover a motive, to understand what could have driven him to commit such an unspeakable act. But what they encountered was something even more disturbing than anticipated. Axel sat across from them, hands cuffed to the table. His expression was blank, emotionless, no sign of remorse, no flicker of regret. He barely blinked, his body language betraying no sense of fear or guilt. Even as officers detailed the brutality of his actions, he remained still, as if the weight of his crimes had not yet, or would never, settle on his conscience. Hours passed, questions were repeated. Officers pushed for any kind of explanation, but Axel gave them nothing, just silence. Detectives turned to Axel's personal history, his digital footprint and the warning signs that had long been overlooked. They uncovered a disturbing past, one littered with violence, obsession, and a fascination with mass murder. Between 2019 and 2021, Axel had been referred to the Prevent Counter-Terrorism program multiple times. His violent tendencies, his obsessive interest with mass shootings, and his growing detachment from reality had set off red flags, but each time his case had been closed. No terrorist ideology had been identified, and no further action was taken. Further examination of his electronic devices revealed a chilling discovery: files containing terrorist materials, including PDFs and other Al-Qaeda training manuals. Investigators also found evidence that Axel had researched the production of biological toxins, including ricin, a deadly substance capable of causing mass casualties. The case against him was airtight. The attack had been planned, calculated, and carried out with cold precision. There was no impulsive actions, only deliberate choices, every step leading to the moment he walked into the heart space with a knife in hand. By August 2024, Axel was formally charged with 3 counts of murder, 10 counts of attempted murder, possession of a knife in a public place, production of a biological toxin, ricin, and possession of information likely to be useful to a person committing or preparing an act of terrorism. On the 20th of January 2025, families of the victims, journalists, and law enforcement officials gathered inside Liverpool Crown Court, prepared for what they expected to be a long and painful trial. But what happened next left them stunned. Before opening arguments could even begin, Axel abruptly pleaded guilty to all charges. A collective gasp filled the courtroom. Families who had braced themselves for weeks, possibly months, of reliving the nightmare were now faced with a sudden, unexpected confession. There would be no defense, no excuses, no attempt to explain away his actions, just cold, blunt admission. But the drama wasn't over. During the sentencing hearing on January the 23rd, as the families of the victims prepared to hear Axel's fate, he attempted one final act of defiance. "I feel ill. I need a paramedic," he suddenly declared, clutching his chest, demanding medical attention. Court officials hesitated. Was it genuine? or was it just another attempt to manipulate the moment? Medical professionals were called in to assess him. After a brief examination, they confirmed he was fit to continue, but Axel refused to cooperate, leading the judge to order his removal from the courtroom. He would not even be present for his own sentencing. In his absence, Mr. Justice Goose delivered a sentence that would make history. Axel Rudakubana was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 52 years. For some it was justice, for others it wasn't enough, but for the families it was the closest thing they would get to closure. One mother, her voice breaking outside the courthouse, struggled to find the words. "I sent my baby to dance class. I never imagined I'd be picking out her coffin." As the dust settled, scrutiny turned to the Prevent Counter-Terrorism program. It had been revealed that Axel had been flagged multiple times for concerning behaviour, his obsession with violence, his disturbing internet searches, and his growing detachment from reality. And yet each time he had been dismissed as a troubled youth, a loner, not an imminent threat. How did he slip through the cracks? How did someone who had researched ricin, downloaded an Al-Qaeda training manual, and fantasized about mass violence get ignored? Prevent had all the warning signs, but they failed, and because of that failure, 3 children lost their lives. With Axel now serving life in one of the UK's highest security prisons, the victims' families can now finally begin to heal, but healing does not go to erase the pain. It does not bring back what was lost. Southport will never forget. The scars of that day remain, etched into the heart of a town that once felt safe. But in the wake of tragedy, the community stands together, determined that these young lives will never be forgotten. After being sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 52 years, Axel Rudakubana was transferred to HMP Belmarsh, a high-security prison in southeast London. Belmarsh is known for housing some of the UK's most dangerous criminals and convicted terrorists, where inmates are typically confined to their cells for up to 22 hours a day. In the aftermath of the tragic Southport attack, rumours circulated on social media suggesting that Axel Rudakubana had been violently assaulted by fellow inmates shortly after his incarceration. These claims were primarily propagated through a widely shared voice note on platforms like WhatsApp, alleging that Rudakubana had been beaten severely within his cell. However, the Ministry of Justice promptly addressed these rumours, categorically denying their authenticity. A Ministry of Justice spokesperson stated, "I can confirm that reports of Axel Rudakubana being attacked in prison are inaccurate. He has not been attacked." Despite the official denial, the rumours continued to gain traction, fueled by the public's interest in high-profile cases and the heinous nature of Rudakubana's crimes. To mitigate potential threats, it is understood that Rudakubana is being held in a segregation unit at HMP Belmarsh for his own protection. Mark Fairhurst, the national chairman of the Prison Officers Association, highlighted the challenges in managing such inmates, noting that due to the notoriety of his crimes, Rudakubana would be target number 1 for reprisal attacks from other prisoners. As Rudakubana begins his sentence, he faces the reality of life within one of the UK's most secure institutions. The combination of his crimes and the prison's conditions will undoubtedly shape his existence for the foreseeable future. This case is one of the most chilling in recent history, but the question still remains, could it have been stopped? Should more have been done to prevent this tragedy? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to hear more in-depth true crime stories, subscribe to the Silent Casebook and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We uncover the darkest stories the world tries to forget, and we're just getting started.